Hello, and welcome back to my book, The Philosophy of the Ananke by Lance Gordon, and the reading that I'm doing. We are into updates of the metaphysical nature, metaphysical updates, and we had been addressing the mind that might just exist behind the order, this Ananke that we see. And now we will continue in the reading. The Absolute and its goal beyond existence. The Absolute does not seek evolution. As inclination sets are changed, people are reborn into higher conditions by a process that may use a variation on the theme of resonance as the karmic tool. The envelope, the guiding force that is fate, acts on the new inclinations at death, resonating the essence of the individual, thereby transmigrating it to a new and appropriate condition. The apparent purpose of this process being evolution. But this evolution of mind and body is merely an illusion, man's label for half of an Ananke cycle. It is an illusion because the cycle continues after evolution, and dissolution becomes the norm, as Herbert Spencer pointed out. In reality, there are two major cycles, and I have to look at my book to see if I have to show you something, so excuse me for a second. Yep, that's what I thought. All right. In reality, there are two major cycles that are physically and forcefully linked. The first is a mind cycle, that of the Absolute's mind and its transformations. At an extreme point in the mind cycle, the Absolute can be considered the one and only mind behind the Ananke. However, the Absolute changes from this oneness condition, which is homogeneous, undifferentiated, and still, to a differentiated, precipitated condition manifested by a multitude of minds, all in a state of high mental activity, while simultaneously retaining its oneness of purpose, design, and thought due to its common ancestry. Although the minds are individualistic at this extreme, they voluntarily act in the same general manner for the good of the whole. Individuality and uniqueness is expressed within the boundaries of proper conduct. At this point, the Absolute is at the other extreme, a high active phase, a phase of relative chaos in the Ananke cycle. The second anti-cycle is the material cycle, that of the body of the Absolute and its transformations. At one extreme, in this anti-cycle, the body can be viewed as composed of primordial physical energy. This white light, vaporous energy changes from its oneness condition that is homogeneous, undifferentiated, and chaotic, to a differentiated, precipitated manifestation which can be visualized in its extreme as an infinite amount of homogeneous bundles of potential energy called dead matter, matter that is totally still. Now in the book I show the cycle, so I'm going to show you from the book. Let me get to the camera mode. And it's over here, so you can maybe take a snapshot of it if you wish and study it a little bit before we go on. So let me get it to a point where you can see it. It looks about right over here. Let me see. Okay, so I will be still. You can take a picture of it if you want. I'll give you 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. In any case, let's get back to the book. The two cycles are linked as follows. So I show the dissolution and evolution, these cycles, the basic Ananke cycle being flip-flopped in the other dimension. You have the mind Ananke cycle and the material body cycle. So you have to get to that point in the book. It's page 149 of the book, or A-29 if you download the book on the links below. I have two of them now. One is this Go file, and the other is actually Google. I hope that does work. So one or the other, you can get a free copy of the book and listen to me actually looking along if you print that out or have it on a computer on the side. Okay. Thus, the Ananke generalization deductively predicts the preceding scenario, where evolution is merely an illusion and only half of the probable story. The absolute undulates from a oneness manifestation of high kinetic physical energy and a low mental activity to a state of low kinetic physical energy and high mental activity, a state of ultimate individual separateness and uniqueness in the extreme. Furthermore, our bodies combined with all the potential and kinetic energy in the universe becomes the true body of the absolute. In addition, our minds, combined with all the other minds in our universe, become the mind of the absolute. In this sense, we are all part of this absolute. The ultimate purpose, and I have to put this away in my book, at least my hard copy, so I don't lose it. The ultimate purpose. So what is the ultimate purpose beyond existence, if it is not evolution, as some cultures say? First of all, evolution is not a purpose since it implies a leading to something else. There is only one purpose which does not lead to another. Many philosophers have realized this goal in human affairs. They called it happiness. Extending this realization to the absolute, we can say that the secondary purpose of the system is to achieve infinite happiness and joy forever in human terms, and infinite balance of dynamic equilibrium systems in material terms. The highest level of this goal is sought as long as existence, the primary purpose, is maintained. Thus, beyond existence forever, the absolute continuously seeks peace, the balance of and between dynamic equilibrium systems, and the consequent happiness for all. Although there exists the tendency towards peace and balance, it can never be reached. It can be approached, it can be improved, it can be evolved, but it will always be fleeting, since all things must be created and destroyed, evolved and dissolved, in order for the necessary thinking of the absolute to take place. After all is said and done, existence is primary. The pursuit of happiness, peace, and balance must be secondary. The absolute always existed, and it tends to evolve things into a peaceful, balance, and happiness condition. It has done this in the past, and it will always try to continuously seek this in the future. We, being part of it, will always innately feel this goal, this ideal. We will be driven to achieve this desire, happiness and peace, although we will never reach it in its entirety, since things must change, things must adjust. On a large scale, the absolute achieves this seeking goal by evolving, by creating numerous normal moderate rhythms, as diagrammed by the Ananke cycles above. On a small scale, life on Earth tends to unfold this trend in a kind of ripple effect and avoid the extreme vibrations by external constraints, as in the case of the animal kingdom, or by internal constraints, as in the case of morals and ethics realized by some human beings. The closer we are to the normal moderate rhythm, while continuously manifesting our creativity, the more positives we experience, the least negatives we endure. Passion should occur every once in a while, and pain at the same frequency. But overall, the normal moderate rhythm delivers change, excitement, and enjoyment, while minimizing the necessary pain of life. Creativity can flourish, given this ideal environment. Creativity is the real joy in life. Therefore, the ideal balanced mixture of change, rhythm, excitement, passion, pain, and creativity becomes the secondary goal of the human condition. Happiness and peace become the ultimate end beyond survival. We and the matter and the energy and the other minds that may exist are the absolute in summation. The body of the absolute changes. Happiness and peace are temporarily disturbed. The tendency towards forming the balanced rhythm always remains the same. In the final analysis, we are still one, following one order to things, the Ananke. Beyond this universe, another question we'd like answered or speculated upon. And for this, I also have to take out, there's a diagram in the book that you can have if you had the book in front of you, that I will show you when we get to it. The absolute resides in menergy and not in space. What does the Ananke generalization, this Ananke Dao Mayat process, predict for that which is beyond the visible universe? What is beyond the galaxies? What is the container of activity called space? Are there different universes in the cosmos, defining the cosmos as something bigger than even our universe? Are there different absolutes? If we examine the Ananke tool, it suggests that space is akin to stillness, as opposed to the primordial energy phase of the absolute, which is pure chaotic explosive energy. Thus, from another perspective, a cycle appears. So again, let me just take a little second to show you it. You can take a snapshot of it, and here we are. And I'll try to get it to you here. Let's see, it's about over here. So I think, it's hard to see. Okay. Looks like it's about there. Okay, so take a snapshot of it. I'll give you 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And I hope that was enough. I think that's enough. Let me see. It looks like it's about the right thing. All right. All right. So go back to the thing. So what it has there is in the bottom of the diagram, it has chaos polarity, primordial energy, which is chaos, going to the stillness polarity, which is just pure space, and back again. As we go that way, you have the chaos polarity, the Big Bang just occurred. Matter is forming from energy is in the middle as we proceed to the stillness polarity. And at the stillness, you have only dead matter exists, dark matter, if you will, totally. But it's just dead. It can't do anything. It has energy contained in it and redirected, but that's about it. And then that's the largest diameter of the universe. Of course, I'm speculating the universe does come to a halt, which is in debate as I speak. A lot of people think we're re-accelerating, re-expanding. There's debate on it. I've seen other articles of other people saying not quite true. So the Ananke would suggest it just might be that we come, for whatever reason, dark matter, dark energy, whatever it may be, we come to a maximum size of the universe and at that stillness polarity, and then we reverse to the smallest diameter, either a point in space or be a homogeneous dense ball like that white dwarf star containing all sorts of explosive energy that happens as you squeeze things closer and closer together. Okay, so let me put this away. Okay, this suggests that as the primordial energy condenses into matter, more space appears until a maximum amount of space is achieved. When the cycle reverses, matter moves to the common center, transforms itself into energy, and the space reduces in size. In the limit, it disappears. Is space part of the absolute and its manifestation? I think not. It is merely necessary. It has a function. As matter is formed, the system loses kinetic energy, and for it to return to the cosmic center, it must store this kinetic energy in something. This storage tank is space, the ultimate vacuum, the ultimate void. It is the stillness of energy. It stores potential energy by forming more of itself, more vacuum. Thus, space becomes necessary to drive the dual system in order to create the balanced, moderate rhythm that is essential for creation and destruction to proceed, the tendency towards peace and balance to occur, and to yield the ultimate condition of the necessity of thought which produces the eternal existence of the Absolute. But the Absolute needs only to reside in the body called matter energy. Let us call this menergy for lack of another word. When menergy is at its peak of chaos, there is no space, and the Absolute resides in it alone. As the Absolute manifestation changes, space appears, but the Absolute continues to reside in menergy alone. Menergy always exists at both extremes. First, as undifferentiated primordial energy, and second, as ultimate differentiated matter. Similarly, the Absolute always exists at both extremes. First, as a oneness of homogeneous mind in an ultimate state of just being, and second, as a oneness of differentiated mind in an ultimate state of separateness and uniqueness. On the other hand, space appears and disappears. Thus, the absolute matches more precisely the cycle of menergy as opposed to the cycle of space. Therefore, this suggests that the absolute resides in menergy and not in space due to the logic of correlation. The absolute is the most omnipresent and most omniscient mind. We now have inferred a mind which generates this Ananke for the purpose of the manifestation of itself. It thinks, it is creative and destructive. It exists forever. It has a tendency to create systems that are in dynamic balance and relative peace. It is not omnipotent. It resides in menergy, but not the void. Is it at least omnipresent? It has been deduced above that the absolute must reside in menergy, matter and energy in various forms, but not in the void. Therefore, the absolute is the most all-present mind insofar as it resides in menergy, but it is not omnipresent over all the cosmos. It does not reside in the void. It does not reside in pure space. For similar reasons, if it resides in menergy, then there is an increased probability that it can be aware of the menergy and its consequent disturbances. So it is possible that the absolute is omniscient about the menergy's state of affairs, but not omniscient with respect to the void. We can therefore say that it is the most omniscient mind, but not totally omniscient about everything. It may be the most omniscient, but it also may not be able to do anything about the disturbances that it empathetically experiences, since it is not omnipotent, as we deduced in previous sections. In the final analysis, we found it not all-powerful out of necessity. It is only the most powerful, most aware, and most present mind. Beyond the space menergy pulsation. So what is beyond the space menergy pulsation? One possible answer that maintains the integrity of Ananke can be viewed as follows. This might be another picture. Yes, it is. So I have to show it to you. This is page A33 or page 153, depending upon if you're in a PDF document. A tapestry made of menergy. I want you to look at this picture. Well, let me get you over here. And here's the picture. Let me see if it's proper. There. Notice that fabric that I do made up of holes, and those holes representing universes, other universes, in this tapestry of matter and energy in different forms. So that's what I mean by that diagram. Okay. Let's go back to the reading. Tapestry made of menergy. Let us imagine an infinite elastic tapestry made of menergy, energy and matter in various forms. See figure above, the figure I just showed you. If we poke a hole in one piece of this elastic fabric, it will start to vibrate. The circumference of the hole is the sphere of life activity, the location of galaxies. The hole itself is merely the void called space. It has the properties of being a vacuum and having shape. With this analogy, we can clearly understand the concept of other holes in this menergy fabric. The circumference of the hole, or in 3 dimensions, the interior surface area of the bubbles or spheres, become other universes. Each universe differs only in its location within the body called menergy. Each universe is the same in that its sphere of activity is composed of the same menergy as any other sphere of activity. Each universe pulsates according to the common behavior called Ananke. Each universe has the same physics, chemistry, and biological laws. Each universe, each sphere of activity, is connected by the intermediate menergy that is in between them. Therefore, the entire cosmos, as defined as being composed of a lot of universes, that is composed of potentially an infinite amount of pulsating universes, can be viewed as a oneness of menergy. The same menergy runs throughout the system, if you view that tapestry before. And since the absolute resides in menergy, as we kind of deduced before, the oneness of the absolute pervades the cosmos as well. Thus, the Ananke generalization, the Ananke deductive tool, predicts many universes, many voids, but only one menergy, and only one absolute of which we are a part, an absolute that infinitely extends itself in all directions, an absolute that lives in menergy, an absolute that demands the ideal vibration, which delivers the ultimate goal of eternal existence and a tendency towards peace and balance for all. Was there a beginning? Will there be an end? The Absolute has no beginning. The Absolute has no end. Since we are part of the Absolute, we have no beginning, we have no end. We simply are, and the Absolute is. The ultimate condition of an infinite existence and the tendency towards peace and happiness being maintained. So we're not going anywhere, we're just maintaining things. Okay, next section, let me see where we are in time. 20 minutes? Yeah, we can start this. Okay. Nature proposes and God disposes. Algorithmic Neo-Darwinism versus a mind behind the Ananke. Ananke update to Chapter 5, June 24th, 2014. This is my most recent update. I was reading an article in the newspaper recently regarding nature and God, and I was impressed by Richard Dawkins' neo-Darwinist views. I realized that if he was right, that evolution was based solely on mindless and random variations, then I was wrong with respect to my inference that a mind exists behind the Ananke. To address this issue, I read The Origin of Species by Charles Darwin, actually about 80% of it, that's pretty good. The Blind Watchmaker by Richard Dawkins, and a 2013 article by Dennis Noble entitled, quote, Physiology is Rocking the Foundations of Evolutionary Biology. Please see the references at the end of this update for further information. A brief review. If you recall, I posed a null hypothesis that the order we see in the universe, Ananke, has behind it, has generating it, only algorithmic processes. I next referred to the components of thinking, namely, algorithms, deductions that are made through step-by-step procedures and or formulas, non-algorithmic deductions, thoughts that start with a concept and yield non-algorithmically other facts and conclusions, and inductions, thoughts that generate concepts and generalizations. Note that I will refer in the rest of this update to deduction instead of non-algorithmic deduction for brevity purposes. Also realize that in general, induction is an upward process from basic truths that yields generalizations, while deduction is a downward process that takes these generalizations and varies them algorithmically or non-algorithmically to yield new facts that are valid. I expressed the fact in previous updates that one can view these processes as exhibiting products of induction, deduction, and algorithms. Next, I pointed out that by observation we see massive groupings like birds, insects, trees, etc., and that these were similar to products of induction. In addition, I pointed out that particular birds, particular insects, and particular trees were similar to products of deduction, and that by replicating a particular bird or tree or insect was accomplished by the genetic code that acted like a set of rules or a recipe for the construction of that particular bird, tree, or insect. Moreover, I proposed that we do some hypothesis testing on the null hypothesis, namely that the process behind the Ananke was merely an algorithmic it, and not a mind at all. But the evidence we observe rejects this view, since we see clusters that remind us of induction, i.e. birds, insects, trees, etc., that remind us of deduction, i.e. type of bird, type of insect, and that remind us of algorithmic processing, the gene code of a particular bird, etc., by analogy. Thus, I concluded that we must reject the null hypothesis and infer that the process behind the order is not an algorithmic it, and it acts as if it is thinking. This is how I inferred a mind. But there now seems to be a potential problem with my logic, i.e. I realized only recently that I was merely observing the taxonomy of life, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species, and that this taxonomy is claimed by the Neo-Darwinists as evolving from a mindless algorithmic process that is gene-centric, centered on the view that the genes do all and are somewhat self-interested. See Dawkins' The Selfish Gene. Obviously, I am claiming that the process that evolved these classifications is algorithmic and deductive and inductive, while the Neo-Darwinists imply strongly a, quote, blind algorithmic process only. So who is right? Big consequences on the end result of our logic. Let us investigate this properly, at least what I say is properly. A brief summary of Darwinism and Neo-Darwinism. There is no doubt that man can select a feature of a species and amplify it or repress it over a reasonable number of generations of the species in question. So how does it work? How can we create a long-necked chicken or a faster racehorse, or a bigger and more colorful tomato, albeit having little taste? We only need two ingredients according to the Darwinists: variation in the species and a selection criterion. It works. No doubt about it. Man has done it numerous times with plants and animals, but only on the species level. We never created a new species or a new genus, at least to my knowledge. We have only selected variations within a species and eliminated the unwanted. We have never created algorithmically a dog from a fish or from any other multicelled creatures that were not in the dog genus, etc., to the best of my knowledge. This process of selecting on the variation is algorithmic. The proof is when man is the selector on random variations of the species under the artificially desired change criterion, example, speed, color, size, taste, shape. The only difference between this and Darwinism is that nature is the selector, with the selection criterion being, quote, survival of the fittest, and that the variations within a species, and between genus are all fair game. Now, the difference between Darwinism and Neo-Darwinism is the conjecture that all variation comes from the genes alone and is done by random mutations in a slow and gradual manner. Their motto could be considered, quote, give me enough variation from gene mutations over long periods of time and the selection criterion of survival, and you get, voila, evolution in all of its glory, done by an algorithmic step-by-step recipe of sorts, having no need for a directional mind at work. The problem with strict Neo-Darwinism is the next little section. Okay, it works for species, but does it work for genera, or if I'm pronouncing that right, and family, and all the major groupings? Dawkins believes so, see The Blind Watchmaker. He constructed a computer model and gave it 9 operational computer genes to vary the stick figures that his model created. It started with one line of a certain length, and the fake genes varied the next connected line by its predetermined quality, like the angle gene and the length gene, etc. After running the model, Dawkins selected the ones that looked creature-like and let the computer mutate the genes randomly on his selections only. That's a key point. On and on the process continued until creatures appeared like alien ants and spiders. It was impressive, and the computer creatures were evolving to the point of perhaps new genera. But there are problems with the Neo-Darwinism and Dawkins' wisdom that lie in the assumptions, which are: 1. Genetic change is random. 2. Genetic change is gradual. 3. Following genetic change, natural selection increases the frequency of the particular gene that has been varied by random mutation and that has been selected by nature as having a better chance of survival. 4. The inheritance of acquired characteristics from, for example, environmental circumstances is impossible, i.e. Lamarck's ideas in any form is impossible. You can look up Lamarck. He was a contemporary of Darwin. He claimed evolution occurred from a different point of view. 5. Survival of the fittest is a law of the universe that needs no explanation and is constant over all time. Similar, in a way of speaking, to the gravity assumption in physics. The first 4 assumptions have been disproved with documented experiments as expressed by Dennis Noble of Oxford, England, in his published article, Experimental Physiology 98.8, 2013, pages 1235 to 1243. Physiology is rocking the foundations of evolutionary biology. Please read this article if you are curious about the details, which are thorough and extensive. His conclusions on the first two are that genetic change is not random, by his experimentation, not a stick computer model, and is shown to be directional under many circumstances. Genetic change is not gradual all the time, and jumps and leaps to create other chromosomal forms by transposons quite often. Moreover, the other two assumptions of the four are disproved as well. Again, see Noble for details. Also, he's on YouTube, so you can put in Dennis Noble and watch what he says. To Dawkins' credit, he does qualify the term random. He does suggest that random should be used as in the variation that can occur without the need of a directional intelligence at work. This is in direct contradiction to the randomness that he uses in his computer models. This is a difficult statement to refute, since variation could occur, under his definition, deductively and inductively, at least in appearance, and could be claimed as random in his book. We will have to approach this yet another way in order to gain insight into the possibility that deductive and inductive appearances point strongly to a mind of some sort. Before we do this, allow me to contest the fifth implied assumption of the Neo-Darwinists. It is not obvious to me that this universe should have inherent in its construction the law of survival. For that matter, the law of gravity, or nuclear bonding, or chemical ionic or /covalent bonding, or any of the cohesive forces being produced by this universe are mind-boggling to me, and very improbable, since the natural state of this universe should be a state of entropy, useless, unavailable energy, chaos, scattered disorder. Entropy is the easiest and least energy solution to the state of menergy, matter and energy in various forms, and any resulting order in the universe would require a coordinated, continuous energy input to oppose this natural disorder. The fact that these strange constant laws exist leads to the dynamic equilibrium systems that we see. These include atoms, molecules, planetary systems, galaxies, and the evolution process itself that yields ultimately man. Now, I have addressed these cohesive forces before in my book. My tentative explanation is that if a mind exists, then these cohesive forces are under its domain. The mind is required to keep these forces actively working towards the goal of continuous attempts at coordination that ultimately yields the order that we see. Without these forces, to include survival of the fittest, this universe would be in a perpetual state of entropy. Therefore, the Neo-Darwinist assumption of the survival of the fittest should not be treated as an obvious. Without this law, survival of the fittest, the variations that exist from any source, with or without a mind, cannot be selected upon. Evolution cannot exist without a selection criterion. I think the selection criterion is maintained by a mind of some sort, the mind behind the Ananke. Let's see where I am time-wise. Well, we're at 33 minutes, so I'll stop here. The next thing will be the section Evolution within the cooking process, an analogy to gain insight. So we're doing more insight into this conflict of the Neo-Darwinists versus that say everything's algorithmic, versus when I'm saying it's algorithmic, deductive, and inductive, and therefore points to a mind rather than an it. So I'll see you next time. Let me go ahead and shut this down, and take care. Until then, I bid you well.